basically 630 blink stalker pressure is just kind of getting on top of you. And the thing is, so can you explain what you were trying more? Because were you always just trying to do the roach attack every game with the
So
queen walk? Were you doing any faster
yeah,
queen
so
walks? Like, what was going on?
I'm always trying to kind of roach Ravager max into Queen Walk. What I changed today was I'm trying now, and I was just trying to walk the queen and create a creep highway, kind of like German taxi, but I didn't have OV speed, so it was very tedious. So now I try to do it like Raynor and Shin do, which is to get some dropper or speed dropper out and get my queen in there. So that's what I'm trying at the moment. But the overall idea is like, yeah, roach Ravager in your face, and then have a Spire, Mutas, Drone the Force,
Yeah.
Infestation Pit, and Hydra Den, and try to, go into
Lurkers.
Hydra Lurker from there, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So lately, I'm more focusing on trying to kill with the Queen Walk and trying to reach the right supply with the Queen Walk, because I kind of struggle with that overall, to be honest.
Okay, so it's fair to say our goal, we're trying to we're trying to roach Ravager Max with Queen Walk, swap into Mutas, swap into Lurkers. Problem right
Yeah.
now that we're trying to look at, and writing all this down in your Google Doc if you want to follow along, or write new notes of your own. Basically saying 630 blink Oracle pressure, and then he's taking a fourth behind that. You feel like you're just kind of like, okay, I'm just kind of defending, or are you actually like just straight up kind of dying to the pressure? What's kind of the
It's
issue
just
there?
I trade,
Yeah.
but he has one base ahead, and I
the Bezos
sacrifice so much, so I'm just behind, from the pressure.
Sorry,
So
so he's got a fourth base while he's doing this,
yeah.
and you don't have enough to overwhelm him. Okay.
Yeah, pretty much.
This is 100% he's 1,000 MMR higher than you problem, but that's good because it allows us to just.
I mean,
focus
it
on
also
the
works.
basics.
The 4K Protoss, same problem, to be honest. I think maybe
Really?
I'm just not great at this push. Yeah.
Well,
It's.
I mean, the thing is, it's not about this push; it's about the early game, then, right? Basically, your build order is not good enough to defend this, right? Essentially, is what it sounds like.
It's not. I don't really take damage from the Stalker pressure, but it's just it derails me sufficiently, and then my push kind of sucks.
Right. Okay. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. What sort of build are we dealing with? This 630 blink Oracle pressure. Is it still Twilight Forge? Is it like they're still going for +1, or are they skipping the Forge?
They open with oracles, like double adept oracles. It's,
Yeah. But like specifically after the oracles, are they? Because normally, do you know their build order? Because normally they go double
I
oracle,
don't play
third
Protoss.
base.
I think that's also one of the issue for me in that matchup. I don't really know what they do. It's
You're
just kind of black magic.
Yeah, you're Masters League basically now. I know you're not technically Masters, but I think you crossed over into Masters once, didn't you? Did
No.
Okay,
I made it to 4.2.
You made it very close. Okay.
Yeah.
100%. So because our whole style here is like basically ZVP is either we're playing just very, very like European macro defensive ZVP, in which case pretty much every game ends up in a like late game standoff. And the European Zergs complain about this whilst also never being aggressive and being like, man, why does every game end up like this? And I'm very vocally critical of them because we've seen Dark win with some of the sloppiest StarCraft play ever, right? I've talked a lot to you and other players about this. I think aggressive play is just a huge weakness for a lot of Protoss players, and I think it's a great way to learn. And I think the ultimate strategy is obviously to be able to do both, right? That's a bit of a long shot, but for now, it's we got to find their weaknesses and stuff. So we need to understand kind of what we're playing against, because like, if Harstem has a build where he opens triple oracle, but he goes 4 gateways, doesn't have a Twilight or a Forge. Did this at the start of kind of this meta, and bam, there's 8 stalkers at your 4th base. You can never get a 4th base up because there's 8 stalkers and oracles, and you're like, what the fuck? How is this so early? He's there at like 520 or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
Thing is, he doesn't have blink or +1. He's way less flexible in terms of that build. And if he does get surrounded a bit too close to creep where the queens can defend the oracles while the lings surround, like, it's really bad for him, right? But it has certain strengths. That is very different to a standard one where a Protoss player is going to go double oracle, and then they're going to go third base.
Free oracle against me, but yeah.
Yeah, normally they'll pause in the oracle production though. At some point, there'll be like little pauses. So it'd be like after 1 or 2 oracles, the nexus goes down. Then they're going to go third and fourth gas on the natural. Then they're going to go Twilight and Forge in the main. Now, an early Twilight Forge is like just after 4 minutes. A late one, sometimes as late as 5 minutes. And that often depends on like if they're double chronoing Adepts, building 3-4 Adepts nonstop at the start, and the Oracles are getting chronoed and they're just diving. It's going to hit later, right? The Twilight Forge transition. Much later Blink +1. Whereas if they're chronoing probes the whole time and only putting 1 or 2 chronos into the Oracles, which it seems like John Bomb's doing here, the very like macro version, he should be able to hit that much earlier. So we can see he's gone only third gas this game. So he's beelining towards the Twilight Forge a bit earlier because he's done that. He's then going for the 4 gates afterwards. So anytime they go Twilight Forge earlier, they are a little more vulnerable to like fast queen walks and things like that. And this is, why you'll often see players play Twilight, so 4 gas Twilight into 5 or 6 gateways when they play Dark. Specifically because he has so many good all-ins that they're like, I can't get the Forge. I basically need to do a sharp blink pressure against Dark because otherwise he's just going to kill me at 6 minutes with 4 queens, 10 roaches, most of which are morphed into Ravagers, and an endless flood of Zerglings, right? Now, John Bomb's timings here look pretty good, look pretty safe. Like, he's just doing a very solid kind of European style. He takes an incredibly quick 4th base, and then he gets across the map. Now, problem is we're just a bit behind at this point. So you're absolutely screwed. Because it's such a build of tiny little edges. And the reason is, if we let Protoss macro uninterrupted like this, which it's hard to disrupt, but if we do let it happen and we don't cut any corners ourselves, they will basically... Protoss has the best macro in the game. They win every max out challenge in Legacy of the Void. They max out the fastest, uninterrupted, they have the best macro. And it's partially because they've got so few units they need to defend with. That's where timing attacks and surprise kind of cuts in. This is why we need to be able to hit timings and stuff to demand respect. Essentially, I see Maxpax do what John Bomb's doing here quite a lot, and he looks rather untouchable until he's playing some of the top Zergs who sometimes just kill him with all-ins. And other times he crushes their all-ins, right? It's very like 50-50, but he's the best Protoss in the world when it comes to defensive solid play especially, right? And he still sometimes, it just looks like, well, that was way too greedy, and he just crumbles and dies with this very similar to what John Bomb did here. And that's important for us to kind of conceptually think about, because I look at what John Bomb's done and I go, dude, you've got 64 probes. He's only on 4 gas. He's not gone 6 gas at least. So there is a little bit of safety there in that regard. But he's only on 4 gates. He has been warping in units decently. But I go, oh man, I absolutely, would love to test him with a Queen Walk Ravager Roach Zergling all in. I'd love to have Lings arrive to try and cancel the 3rd, depending on what his habits are, at 4 minutes to set up for the next stage. There's definitely a few different things.
He readies the 2nd Oracle to the 3rd, so I mean, I can't really get the cancel.
Yeah, you technically can there if there's a small window, but it needs to be so perfectly timed. It's one of those things. If he's usually rallying extra oracles there rather than across the map, and he's more defensive, which it seems like his opening was, then obviously that's like I said, a very narrow option. The other thing is you just need to be greedier yourself and have a better opening, right? So these are the strategic. There's I'm going to punish you. You're being too greedy, or I'm going to be even greedier. So let's go and focus on the greed.
Because I only make 12 links, and then I just rush to 66 drone. But
better might be a better word, right? Because there's optimization. So when I'm saying greed, I'm just saying more drones early. I'm not saying necessarily. Well, there is a corner you can cut already. We've got 9 queens with a 10th on the way. That's way too many queens. We don't need this many queens, right?
Yeah, I've actually started cutting in my other games, and I can get it a bit faster. I have another replay where I actually have roaches coming out at 6:30, and I'm already on 66. So yeah.
The other thing is, if we know he's doing this style, and what's his normal follow-up to this? Just non-stop Gateway Man into Storm, or what?
But lately, since I'm just gonna push, he just gets charged and crushes my push. I made Mutas, so I've got pretty much, I've invested a lot, so he moves me and I die. So it's I feel really helpless, to be honest, in those games, because I'm just like, okay, I just can't do anything.
Yeah. Well, you're playing someone 1,000 MMR higher than you. So number one, you should feel hopeless. Number two, like there's like you don't want to practice too much with this much of a skill difference.
Yeah. I
Make
mean,
sure you get
I
some
do
games
beat
in with
him when
other
he plays
people.
Terran
Yeah.
now and then. I can actually play the game. It's competitive, but against these Protoss, I just feel very much, helpless.
Yeah. Well, the thing is because you can't keep doing the same thing. Because the builds I'm teaching you are about surprise, right? So this is what I'm
Yeah.
saying
All
is
right.
like they're good for ladder practice, but they're not good for practicing against one player. This is why you're putting yourself in a corner because you're doing things he knows you're doing, which is so bad against Protoss in general if they know what you're going to do, number one. But number two, he's also a stronger player. So that's what I'm saying is like you should never expect to beat him if you're just practicing the same build. All you can do is focus internally on just getting your timings a bit better. So your win
Yeah.
condition should be like purely build order based, purely timing
Oh
based,
yeah.
purely
No,
execution based, right?
that is what I do.
Yeah.
But it's always a bit frustrating to see that when I hit and I try to hit the cleanest attack I can, and he just swats it away, and I'm like, and he already has a force, and I'm like, feels bad. I wish to, if at least I was able to make him bleed a little, I'd feel
Yeah.
good. But like lately, making him bleed a little is like killing 2 gateways that he put for his SimCity, and I'm like, damn, that really sucks.
It's strategy time, Cal. It's strategy time, my friend.
All right,
We have to start looking at his builds and thinking about how
all
he's
right.
playing the game.
Let's
This is
hope
the
he's not
next step in
watching
your
then.
game. This
Now, if
is
you
the
can
next
give me
step.
something, that can. I was thinking, for instance, when he moves out with all his stalkers,
Yeah.
his base is kind of naked. So if I had a group of Ling and could probably cancel his force at this stage,
100%. Perfect.
yeah,
Exactly. Great thinking. Great thinking. This is awesome. This is awesome. So essentially, to sum up his style, 630 Blink Oracle Pressure. He's got a fourth base behind it. It starts at about 6 minutes, right? Starts at 6
yeah,
minutes. So we can say vulnerable from, 6:30 to 7 minutes. Mass Stalkers are like Gateway Man style from there, which, by the way, Mass Stalker is kind of the best thing for countering. So let's just write some general notes here. Let's just write some general notes. Mass Stalker is the best thing other than Disruptors, I would say, for defending mass roach attacks. Because essentially what you really want is you want to preferably get a bit of a lead. Is always good if we want to do a timing attack. That's just a StarCraft thing, is like if we can cut a bit of a corner or be a bit greedy or just be a bit of a head, makes the timing attack stronger. But the other thing is we want them to be diversified too heavily. What is the ideal situation for a mass roach attack? Double forge. Oh, I'm transitioning into Robo and Robo Bay, and I'm taking a fifth base as well, and I'm building a cannon and a battery in each base because I don't know what's going on. And oh, there's just a shitload of roaches here, and yeah, I've got 12 stalkers. And I might have 8 gateways. I can warp in 8 more, but I've only got 20 stalkers. This guy has friggin' 50 roaches on top of me, and I just kind of don't have the numbers, and I just die. Because you're going to notice Protoss is a real race that goes in very different directions based on what they think's happening in the game. Most players. I don't know exactly how John Bomb's been playing recently. I'm sure he's been playing kind of opposite versus you because you've been doing the same thing. He's been happy to do the same thing against you repeatedly. But usually they're really like Protoss is the powering race. So they will just not produce. Terran never stops producing out of their production. Zerg is like all workers, all army, all workers, all army. Protoss is like hey man, if I think I know what's happening, I got good scouting, I'm just going to build nothing. Economy upgrades tech. Oh, and now in the space of a minute and a half, I will like make a huge fucking army out of nowhere. And like there's these brutal power spikes. Now, what's interesting about Gateway Man style here is it definitely can because it's so bare bones, it has, a few weaknesses. So number one, there's no answer to lurkers, right? With stalkers, right?
yeah.
So what's it weak to? Weak to fast lurker, no limited detection. So I know this is a bit of a gimmick, but
He
basically,
does go storm with it eventually. I think he's not going full gateway man. He played me full gateway man, and that was even worse, to be honest. That was really brutal.
no worries. I mean, Storm is really bad versus lurkers as well, and that also doesn't help versus tunneling claws. So unless he's always going quick robo afterwards, tunneling claws is an option that we can use depending on the game. That's a very niche option. That's not something I want us to focus on for now. It's just being noted. But this style is weak to fast lurker. What else is this style weak to? Basically, if you stop their expansions getting up, okay? Weak to, like you said, stopping their expansions, which is a great call you made. So if you can have enough lings across the map to do that, that's great. It's also weak to getting surrounded and shut down, basically, these attack timings. Now, if he has saved a lot of Oracle energy, he's done a great job of that this game, by the way. A lot of Protoss players don't do that as maturely. Then he can do a little bit better. But if you go counterattack the 4th, what you're kind of doing there is you're kind of going for an abundance of units. So against this particular style, what we often want to do, Spire is super low priority. In a game where your opponent's more passive, more robo-focused or whatever, the really quick Spire is amazing. This sort of game, the quick Spire is a much lower priority. We can absolutely delay it, okay?
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
Yeah. So what our plan would be...
But how do I detect that? Just because there's no gas on the 3rd? Is that it?
Well, for now, it's just because you're playing John Bomb, so you'll just be like, he always does this.
Okay.
But,
but you know, in a real game.
just run your Zerglings in. You'll see if they're non-stop warping Stalkers in, I would imagine. And you'll be like, oh, okay, like he's got a lot of Stalkers.
If I know that aggression's coming, I can
and you should have a unit on the 4th. If you see a 4th this early, it's usually a Gateway Man style as well.
It's a bit tedious on this map, but yeah, I should do that.
Yeah, you can open these rocks up is the easiest way with like your Zerglings to get down that right side. Obviously, you can just run a drone to the right as well. That's always a good idea. Other than that, it's obviously like if you scout the through, if you see he stopped probing and there's no gases, that can be a thing. And usually there's more gateways. He's taking his 4th off just 4 gates. And so basically you got to think about this. He's taking 4 Nexus off 4 gateways. That's incredibly fucking greedy, man. That's ridiculous. You see a Terran build a 4th command center off 4 barracks, you're gonna go fucking kill it.
If I knew how to counter it, man, I would have, but I don't.
Yeah. So we got to think about it. He has this extreme strength in this one little point on the front. So your Ling backstab cancels the 4th. That's fucking huge. They need to get their expansions up because they're playing a low gas heavy mineral style, right? So by the time that main mine's out, they need that 4th open to transfer 8 workers to, plus to saturate with another 8 workers. That still only supports 72 workers. Total, right? If he builds 8 more workers from here, that's all because he's on 4 gas. So then he needs a 5th base as well. If he wants to go up to like 80 workers like they often do, he needs a 5th base, and he needs that up friggin' early as well. So you got to realize like they need to control a lot of the map, and they are open to counterattacks. So that's definitely something we can think about here as well. If you do a counterattack, that's often going to bait a lot of Oracle energy as well. So if we go on the 4th, there's a lot of Oracle energy going down. It buys us time to drone a little more before going back into mass units. And if he does come back to the front again, we can then full surround him. And he's either down on Oracle energy, or if we get...
Technically, I'm at 66 drone in this scenario, no?
Sorry, say again?
Technically, in this scenario, I'm already at 66 drone with a
No. In a theoretical scenario, you've stopped droning earlier because you have no army right now. So you might actually cut drones to at like 55 or something, to be ready for this. Depending on how good your opening is versus their opening, there's a bit of a feel. If you can get to 60 or 66 drones, that's great. But you might cut at like 55 to build your initial Zerglings. Because if you can cancel the 4th, that's great.
What tells me I should stop droning and attacks, and when I see more than 3-4 Stalker?
Don't worry about scouting for now. Let's just literally practice this build. We can talk about how to read it later.
Gotcha.
For now, let's just do it as standard versus any build that looks like this. Anytime a guy's going Oracles into Blink, all you need to do is see a single Stalker at the 3rd base. It's this style.
Okay, gotcha.
If we start playing against a lot of different styles, like we can balance it based on the meta of probabilities. If you've got a lot of guys who are just building 3 Stalkers but actually going double Robo Colossus and purely sitting at home, we want to drone way harder, right? And go straight up that tech tree to muters. But for now, let's just focus on this one, and then we'll figure out the reads later, I guess. So let's put a pin in that, and let's make sure we come back to it. How to tell difference between passive versus aggressive Blink. For now, we're just going to do the same thing every single time, and that should be fine. Just do the safe heavy unit style every time.
Yeah, I think that's
so let's say 55 drones.
I lose a lot against 2.5 base aggression, we beat Oracle or like, you know, Sentry, Immortal or things like that. And I think because I try too hard to get to that 66 drone, and cutting earlier is going to help me with that.
Did you say 2 base timings?
2.5, you know.
Like with just like half the 3rd saturated and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, or no gas on the 3rd, you know, things like that. I mean, I've
That'll be
got a
good.
few replays like that in.
I think with those, you probably can usually get to six. Oh, it depends on the type of timing. I think that with those, you won't see many stalkers usually, right? They'll normally be like more, like you want to be more roach focused against those, whereas you want to be more ling focused when you see stalkers warping in. So all you'll build is zerglings at first, right? 55 drones. We want to mass lings, and then we want to
So only
move
free
those
hatch,
lings.
I'm gonna float like crazy, you know.
Sorry.
If I try to build only lings off of free hatcheries with 55 drone, I'm gonna float like so much money, right?
Yeah, we can definitely get a fourth hatchery. I mean, you're only doing this. I mean, one big round of production. Let's say we build like it's probably about 30 zerglings is usually enough. I say masslings. It's just one and a half, maybe 2 rounds of production at most.
Yeah, I make
Basically
30, 40 lings. Yeah.
30 to 50 lings, somewhere in that range. Yeah, that's a good mass. Let's say 30 to 50 lings. I'm not sure the exact number. It's going to be based on feel a little bit. Move the lings ready to kill the fourth base when he moves out, right? And you should have single lings on different scenarios as well. And then, so once you got those lings ready, we drone to 66, right? Behind that. Yeah, and it's good that we squeeze a fourth in as well, because it makes our build a bit less predictable. So let's if we're going to be doing this and you're playing against this style all the time, we just should be taking a fourth base and probably a macro hatch as well. Depends on how good you are with your injects. I would go both fourth base and macro hatch. Or fourth base and fifth base, up to you. Because actually, I like fourth and fifth because sometimes you lose one of those hatcheries. And I like to be able to just cancel it. What do you reckon?
Yeah, usually I do fourth, fifth, and macro hatch, but you know, I'm every time I have 400 minerals and no larva, I'm like, well, just one more is gonna go down.
Fair enough. That's it, man. You spend a whole lava inject. It's
so
like okay.
Okay, so I do. If I see extra stalker warp in, I assume it's gonna be a blink stalker. Timing, I do 2 rounds, 30 to 50 links. I post drone for that. I'm gonna be having 400, 500 gas by this point, right? I guess I go there. I go upgrade. Do I do melee in that case?
So melee is better against these blink openings. You can open melee.
Yeah.
I often open melee and then swap back into range depending on what sort of my unit comp's looking like and stuff. It depends on how you want to play, because definitely, like, if you can get far enough ahead, you can kind of just... We can optimize your opening and literally just defend this with Ravagers, like Roach Ravager, and make some Zerglings and then try to do it. But that's kind of man-moding things a little bit. It relies on you outplaying your opponent. And knowing that you're going to keep playing John Bomb, I do not have faith in you outplaying him, because his build looks pretty fucking tight here. And in terms of pure macro.
Defending is fine. I don't die to this. You know, it's just it delays my push, and by the time I reach his base, I'm screwed, you know.
But I mean, like, we need to be a bit ahead. So because we need to be able to like shove his timing back and be building mutas at the same time, which you're not going to be able to do. So I'm not saying you're dying to it, but I'm saying if we were to play purely defensive, you need to macro at such an exceptionally high level. I think that's impossibly hard for you right now. And I think it's, in general, the much harder way to play the matchup. I think it makes ZVP so much more difficult. So don't get me wrong. I do feel we could make this style work, but I think it's like, basically, I see 2 paths. One of them, that's like the dark woods with like all sorts of fucking pain.
Gotcha.
And I'm taking us down the slightly easier path.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm like, man, that's like, you know, you're just in the chamber just lifting weights for 3 months, and then you're like, I have the sickest first 6 minutes of any ZVP player out there against Oracle openings. But it's like, it's so much work in such a little specialist corner that I'm like, We will touch on some things, by the way. We will get back to a few things we can improve in the opening. We'll look at that. But it's good to talk about the strategy first, because this is so important, right? Because you've been running into a guy who's very good. He's executing such a good build with such good, strong things to it. And we need to like understand its weakness and think about his builds and think about what we can do differently. So we drone up behind those lings, being ready on the map. And so that might even be if we're, you know, so we're droning up. And then we're going to be going into that next step. Now, that could be 66 drone, and we could just go for like a mass of units, right? So one thing you can do basically is saying, hey, you're doing a greedy build. You can't be aggressive at the same time. So let's map that path out. Let's basically say non-stop Ravager Ling from that point on, right?
Okay.
From 66
Of
drones.
66 drone. Yeah.
This
Okay.
technically is counted if he has good scouting map control, uses his oracles
Yeah.
really well, and keeps building oracles. But the way this works is basically he defends the Lings, rebuilds his fourth, immediately moves across the map to once again do what he wants to do. Keep all the fighting outside your base, on the edge of creep, blinking back, picking off units for free, baiting you into stasis traps, being a dirty piece of shit, basically, you know? And if we let him do that and keep the fighting there, it's very bad for us, right? But if we then send another 40 Lings around and cancel his fourth again and run Lings into his third at the same time, he can either force his way deep on creep or he has to quickly recall, run home, you know, all this sort of stuff. And we can kind of, by always having an abundance of units, punish his aggression. This is how you counter Clem. This is how we see Clem has lost most of his games in the last 4 years of StarCraft. You can always rely on him coming across the map to attack you while being greedy. So you just build extra army on a lower economy than him, set half your army up ready to counterattack. He moves out. You have just enough to defend at home and enough to completely ruin his economy at the same time. To this day, that is the hard counter to Clem.
And I attack in the back with the Lings. Is that what you mean, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And because we technically have room to drone up to 75, 80 drones, but we're choosing not to, we just have extra army so that we can do that. Because we stopped at 50, 55 drones, and then we're up at 66 drones only. And the thing is, even the 66 drones, if we're playing this style, we're literally like, we don't need 6 gas. We could be on only like 4 or 5 gases the whole time, right? 4 to 5 gas is all we need. So we could, you know, we can drone our fourth base. And just have an abundance of Ravager Ling. Now, obviously, the problem is we don't have a great tech transition, but if we are still squeezing the Spire in behind it, and you will bank gas if you're very Zergling heavy, depending on how, as long as you don't spend too much gas on Ravagers, it kind of depends, right? You can be more Ling counterattack focused, plus Lings and just a few Roaches and Ravagers to defend. And then you can squeeze the mutas in earlier, or we can be more just like I said, like you're even sending Ravager armies across the map. So like half your Ravager Ling just like comes across, hits here on the left of his natural.
Here.
Yep.
We get off for a second. So can you redo that train of thought real quick for me?
Okay, so basically, are you looking in the document where I'm writing this?
I'm looking at the stream, but now I'm looking at the document.
So basically, you see where I'm typing, right?
Yeah.
So basically, we're mixing in counterattacking, but then occasionally, whenever he comes to the edge of creep, just sandwiching his army and crushing it as well. So oracles do a lot of damage, but especially if he comes too deep on creep, or if you come from 2 sides, you can get a good surround. It can be really nice. And the thing is, why does that not normally work? Because he set up 16 fucking stasis traps outside our base. But if he's running back and forth, defending his fourth, defending his third, well, where are his stasis traps? He can't have them everywhere. And they're all getting set off all the time by Zerglings rallying out and all sorts of things, right? So, but if we let him sit in this position and set up that layer of stasis traps, you can't really surround the Stalkers. But if he's having to scramble back to defend his fourth, then run back forward, then he's defending his natural, there's like, he can't really set everything up, and his oracles aren't always in the perfect position, and they start running low on energy as well. And there's a point where if they suddenly don't have more than, say, 1 oracle turned on with its laser and you get a Lings around, it's just like, and he doesn't have the ability to recall most of his Stalkers, things can crumble very quickly because those Stalkers are so expensive. I think of this style kind of like the old battle mech with the old Cyclone, where it's like, it's hitting you, it's killing units, it's pulling back, it's killing units, it's pulling back. You know, the Cyclones would just hit and move, hit and move. Yeah. And it felt like you're just losing units for free the whole game. But the moment you get that one surround and you catch it out of position, or you get a ton of, you know, units in a mineral line, their whole build just would crumble, right? It's like this very fragile fortress where it's very strong when everything goes right for him. But the moment we force enough movement and positioning, his army kind of falls apart a little bit.
Yeah, I've had the issue where this attack is the only move out that he does, and then he has 4 space and he goes like Charge Lord Immortal Archons with Storm. Yep. And I feel like going full Ravager Lings against that style would be, you know, pretty bad. To be honest.
Absolutely. Well, that's why we were saying that's best, and I'll put that as a sub point. I mentioned it verbally, but I'll write it. Best versus a Protoss, that is over aggressive, right? Remember
versus Gateway Man style, yeah.
The Gateway Man, I'm just making stalkers. The moment he defends his fourth, he runs across the map to counterattack you, and then you've got another big wave of lings canceling his fourth a second time, right?
Yeah.
That's
so
what that's
usually
best
what
for.
happens is I will hold this thing, he will have his force running, and then it just chills until he gets, his full army of Zealot Immortal Archons.
Yeah.
And then, I don't die. It's usually I do get two lurkers by then or things like that. But, like he just holds, he has these pressures that puts me behind, and then he just chills and lets me impale myself on his army. So
yeah, and because you're stuck on 3 base, Roach Queen into Muta
exactly, I
every game
think
works perfectly.
I'm missing the macro transition, and I have the same problem against Protoss who just chill on 3 base for a long time. Whereas, like, I'm just playing into their hand by committing to that push, but I don't really know what the alternative is. So I don't really know what to do. Like, and I've talked about this with John, and he was like, well, maybe you could just make 8 mutas. Like, you stop at 10, 15 roach to clear the Zealot run by, you make 8 mutas, and then you transition into lurker. And I'm not sure if that's the optimal way to do it or not, and I'm a bit stuck in those situations.
I think,
Basically,
honestly,
every time
Mass Muta is the
Protoss is
easiest
not.
way to abuse this sort of very defensive Protoss. Because
Probably.
think of him, he's Showtime right now. The way he's playing is Showtime. He's doing like one pressure, and otherwise he's jerking it in his corner of the map. I love Tobias; he's great.
I mean, if
but
you
I have
keep
seen,
going in
I've-
this replay, that's exactly what's happened. I eventually attack, and then eventually he just chills, and I end up with lurker, and I have no idea what I'm doing.
No, I don't want you to play lurkers. Fuck that shit. That's for tryhard virgins.
You
man.
told me to play lurkers. That's what you mean.
they're very good after mutas, but in this case, we're just going to kill him with mutas because this is a very different sort of setup. Because we were talking after a 3 base all in, we go some mutas, then we kind of, we go into the lurkers. We're going to be going 4th and 5th hatchery now, right? It's a very different build for you against this style.
Okay.
So we're going to just go 80 drone, 10 gas mass muta instead of that non-stop ravaging. See, this is the different follow-up. You're going to use this follow-up 2 every time against John Bomb rather than follow-up 1. So you're going to basically drone to 66, maybe build some more lings, but then basically just drone to 80. And you can probably just drone to 80 immediately, I would imagine, while trying to cancel his 4th with the lings. So you're going to build 30 to 50 lings, get 2 extra hatcheries, and then you're just going to go up into mass muta. And that should be really good against a very defensive Protoss. We've seen every Protoss die to this.
Put down the Spire as early as possible, as soon as Lair is finished in Zen. I don't delay it anymore if I see aggression.
Sorry, when did you want to put it down? Say again?
As soon as Lair is finished, or do I wait until I figure out what's happening a bit longer?
Let's say you can put it down as soon as Lair's finished, but it's lower priority than everything else you're doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a bit scary to start.
Yeah. Because it's more important for you to go melee or +1 range. Are you going to go melee with this build, by the way? I think melee is probably a good one to start. What do you reckon?
I probably would. I usually, like, if I have a lot of lings, it's not like you say a lot of ling mass mutas, where it's not like I'm ever going to get 2 hydras or lurker, from what I can tell. So
I like the idea of... the funny thing is I've seen pros go +1 range and still end up playing this style, just because, they really wanted to go more roach heavy or into lurkers, and they just didn't end up doing it because of what happened in the game, and it still works out. It's obviously not optimal running around with +1 range Zerglings, but it's fine. So I think that should be good because you get the upgrade. As long as I just did a macro cycle. I started my 4th and 5th base. I've spent all my lava. Oh, I've got a bit of money free. Okay, I can squeeze the Spire in. I would say the latest we want to start the Spire is going to be about 6:45.
okay.
That's just off the top of my head, looking at this game. I think we could have started it just before this one finished, and it still would be fine for that game plan. Because it's just, you're kind of stuck fighting a little bit more with this style, right? Where they come forward with this gateway pressure. It's kind of like if a Terran 3-rexes you or something, right? It's like, okay, we both need to build army and fight a little bit more. And we're going to use that army to cancel his 4th, to keep his economy low, hopefully get our 4th and 5th base up, but we can do really well from there. Okay. Was there any more questions about this style?
Yeah, mass mutas, but I don't know. I'm afraid of Storm, man. I'm like, how do I play mutas into Zealot Archons? It's just because whenever I do mutas, I kind of get A moved, and I die.
Yeah, basically you just fly in and kill all their shit. If you've never played Mass Muta, that is obviously a learning curve, so you could play
I
Lurkers,
have, but
but Lurkers is definitely the
it's
harder style. Um,
okay. But like,
it, you've
how do
probably
I do
been
once
going
they have
mutas a
5
bit too late.
Archons?
It's it's
Is
it's
what I
it,
mean.
it's all about momentum, right? Do you have the mutas
Okay.
up early enough? So if you get there, there's 4 bases established with cannons and batteries, blink stalkers in every base, high templars spread across the bases. You can win, but
Yeah.
it's hard and it relies on them making mistakes, right? It's very hard.
Yeah.
But there's other games where they're not as established. So the thing is, like, we can't just be letting this 4th base get up like this. Like, this is a
Okay. So I
crime.
need to. That's the issue. Yeah. If I start, because yeah, that's what the games feel like very one-sided because I attack once it's already established at like 70, 80 drones.
Yeah.
It's like a Terran going against a 90 drone Zerg. It feels completely unfair.
Yeah, and it is absolutely, and this is why surprise is such a big thing because this Protoss, if they know what you're gonna do, is the most bullshit race in StarCraft. This is why like PvT is my favorite matchup to watch because it's literally just every day Terrans scratching their heads, being like, "What new bullshit can we surprise Protoss with?" Because when we don't surprise Protoss, Terran looks like absolute fucking ass. Thankfully, you can always surprise Protoss with Terran and Zerg. So this is the great balancing factor of StarCraft. It's why people don't like Protoss because they go, "Oh, I gotta surprise them, fucking gimmick race bullshit, fucking." But at the same time, it's a huge glaring weakness they have. So, dude, I gotta say, you did your build pretty well. I think you'd kill so many players out there who are overthinking things.
And
John Bomb
I
has
have
such an
my
optimized
50%
build.
rate in CVP, but it just doesn't feel good.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, the strategy, man, strategy. If you're playing at
Yeah.
GM level, man, you're playing at GM level with, with diamond strategy, not even diamond strategy. You've got really good, execution in certain mechanics and things, but we're just kind of following a build, and this is all got to be about surprise and all that sort of stuff. So, anyways, I think we had a pretty good timing here. I think it was okay. We could have had a little more stuff potentially. We definitely can optimize the opening. Let's go back and look at your opening and let's just talk about that because, like we said, his build's
Okay.
very, very optimized. So, looking at our work account, 530, we're at 54 drones. What harassment has he done this game? 1 adept, that's it, hey? Let's just look at the build order and look at the basics and kind of check everything that's happening. All right.
And I kind of struggle with 15-15 to the 2 adept pressure. I fixed that now. I manage it better, but this game is from when I was still figuring out what to do between, after 32, after you put down your server, in which order to build the links and so on.
Yeah.
So,
Check it.
yes,
Does he
that's
cannon rush you a lot?
no, but that's standard. I don't want to metagame too much. I just do that every game, and I don't want to learn builds that rely on the extra 5 mineral I will get from that, so I just keep it standard.
It is a good 25 minerals there that you sacrifice by going down like that. That's quite a
Yeah,
few trips, and
there
it
are
does
a
hurt an opening
lot
like
of
this a
cannon
little bit.
rushes in my level. Like
Yeah.
50% of my game real number is cannon rush,
And
so
I'm okay
I
with you
kind of
doing it
have to.
versus the regular people, dude. I had to rank up a new account last week, and I was like, what the fuck, dude? Every single Protoss cannon rushed me every single game. I was like, you guys are fucking stupid. I was like, I get some people
Yeah.
doing it, but it was really dumb. Just don't do it versus him. Mental flexibility. I'm playing John Bomb. This guy is the greediest macro player of all time. He doesn't even try to block you at the start and stuff. Like I would also, if we were playing super optimally versus him, we also would go hatch gas pool because he's not trying to block your hatchery at all, right? So we would take more risks and things. Now, obviously that's
Yeah.
hard, but this is kind of the
But my goal
strategies you
is
need to
not
start
to
doing.
beat John Bond. My goal is to get
Yeah,
builds that I can play on ladder ways. So that's why I try to recreate the ladder experience. Otherwise, it's kind of.
yeah. The thing is, the higher you get in ZVP, the more strategic it is, right? Where you look at the top guys, they're always skipping scouts versus players they know they can get away with it and all this sort of stuff. So this is
Yeah.
this is the
But
whole
I'm playing
thing is
ladder,
like,
man. I'm not playing.
yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Like, we're never going to expect to do well in these games if we're not looking for those tiny edges. Because ZVP is all about a good opening to set us up for the mid
Mhm.
game. And this is why, like I'm saying, like we're going to be getting savaged in our games every time we play John Bomb, because if we're trying to play a very standard game to be safe at kind of diamond and stuff, it is a problem. Now, the other thing I would point out is you can defend a cannon rush that isn't perfectly executed with this without seeing it usually, because they often go for it a little bit late, and you can do the spine crawler reaction, which a lot of players, because the hatchery finishes so early with a 15-15, if you don't drone scout, if they do it perfectly, they'll get the hatchery kill. But I've noticed that about half the time, maybe a bit more than that, depends on the player level and how they execute, you can actually just quickly build 3 spine crawlers. They'll only have built 2 cannons or whatever, and you can kind of basically save the hatchery just before it dies. And if you do that,
So
you
it's
are
like
a little ahead.
3 spine crawler before queens.
Yeah,
like as soon as the hatch pops out.
As soon as the hatchery's done, you just build 3 spines next to it. So that's like a nice little emergency reaction you can do sometimes. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I try that. Usually I just pull every drones and
Yeah.
go out in a blaze of glory.
So basically, this is only something I started doing with 15-15 because I wouldn't know about the probe, right?
Yeah.
So I'd just be like, oh shit. So the ways we can do it without, like, we really want to skip the drone scout of the natural, right? So there's 2 things. First, Overlord can queue over your natural, then across for a higher chance of spotting first probe. Reason I don't like this, I don't like
it either.
Because it slows down scout, and it doesn't see if a pylon goes down. So he might just be trying to block your base, And it's like kind of hard to read into that. So then you're just like, well, do I just send a drone down anyway every time I see a probe? Like, this feels shit. So I don't like it. So
that's kind of what I'm doing now. Yeah.
So what I prefer there, like we said, is just if better response is bring 3 drones and insta build 3 spines. Have drones spread out in position beforehand. Now, usually build them out of range of the cannons and hopefully out of vision. Because a lot of the time they kind of wall the probe in or whatever. They don't really check what you're doing. They just like throw cannons down, wall it in, sit there with the probe. So that's nice. It's out of vision. It's also because the cannons will still start either earlier or about the same time. Slightly earlier. They take 28 seconds for a cannon to build. It's 36 for a spine. So 8-second build difference. You can't build in range of the cannons. It's not going to do well for you, right? Yeah. The other thing is obviously try to build lings. Build 4 to 6 lings as well to try and kill probe, etc. And then go back to droning.
So the idea is like I create 3 spine crawler and then I uproot them and try to root them in range of the cannon.
That's it.
And save it like that. Okay. That's
and just make sure you focus fire them as well. So root them all in range and focus fire cannons. So like I said, if they built their cannons straight away and they focus the hatchery, like it still can absolutely die. But I found that works sometimes, and it feels really good when I save the hatchery. I'm not sure how much you want to experiment with that. Like I said, I'm not an expert cannon rusher. I noticed most cannon rushers on the ladder do a range of random bullshit. Sometimes they do it really tight. Sometimes they do it really awkwardly. So technically, I'm sure a cannon rush expert out there is like, this should only ever work versus Nexus first cannon rush, like, or something like that. I'm sure there's, technically this shouldn't work as a defense reliably, but we know how ladder is, right? We're happy to play the odds a little bit.
Cool.
So that's one thing.
Let's try to keep it here on the schedule because I have many questions.
Okay.
I have another question against base saturation. I kinda fumble when I get to the 3 mineral lines built. And I'm like, I know some pros do it differently. Some people rally every base to their mineral line. And I usually I try to just build the gas and then create 3 drones and rally them to the gas, and that doesn't really work as well for the 6 gas for once at 66. So what is like the, most APM efficient way of achieving that? Because every time I like wing it, and I don't like that.
The most purely APM efficient way is what you said. The just build 3 drones, click on the gas. It is inefficient though, once you're on 6 gas. So I find rallying to each mineral line is the best balance. The reason it's the best balance is no matter what harassment or distractions happen, your drones are automatically near where they need to be. So you can just go to your main, grab 3 drones, click them on the gas, go to your natural, grab 6 drones, put them on each gas, go to your third, grab the drones, you know,
Yeah. So
and
you
yeah,
oversaturate your mineral lines for a bit.
absolutely. And going up to 20, 22 drones is fine. You get a decent bit of minerals from getting up to
Yeah.
22 workers. So
I
it's
don't know.
it's
I never do
yeah.
it. Very rarely.
A lot of people feel like it's completely wasted, and I'm like, you don't realize just how
Yeah.
much more minerals you're getting by having those extra, you know, five workers or so on the mineral line.
The
It's not
game
bad at
tells me
all.
22 of 16. I'm
It's
like, oh my
red.
god, I'm wasting.
Yeah, you're playing
It's
bad.
red.
It's
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 not
playing
good.
bad. The number's red, right? And it's like it's actually, especially for
Okay.
Zerg players. Like I tell a lot of the rookie, the you know, gold and below guys. I say rookie, not necessarily rookie, but you know, lower level players.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
tell them 18 workers should be the number you aim for as standard because they're always undersaturated, man. Because of that red number,
Yeah.
every single player is always under saturation. They're always on like 13, 12 workers, 11 workers. And I'm like, fuck, man, just build
Yeah,
20.
that's rough.
Aim for 20 because I know you guys aren't monitoring your saturation. And then you'll be on 15, 16, 17, which is way better than
Okay.
being at
Yeah,
11, 12, 13.
I'll try that in the future, but I feel it also feels like I'm delaying my gas a bit for that. I'm delaying like getting the gas, because there's this tiny moment where my gas are finished and my mineral lines oversaturated and they're not pulled. So I don't know. It feels a bit weird, but I give it a go.
So the other thing
Um,
you can do is you can
mhm,
do manual rallying as well. So that's a good question. So rallying to gas, other than
mhm.
rally to mineral line, rally to each mineral line, a bonus thing I like to do if the game's pretty chill, there's not much going on, I got extra APM, is
Yeah,
I will click the hatchery and build drones plus rally
from
to its
there.
own gases. But that relies on you
Uh,
clicking the hatchery. That's me going
yeah,
click main
gotcha.
base, build 3
Yeah,
drones,
yeah,
click on
yeah,
the
yeah.
gas. I'm at the natural already. I've just taken my gases. Oh, it's got a bunch of lava. Sweet. I can build 3 drones, click on the gas, build
Mm,
3 drones, click on the. You can normally
okay,
only do it for 1 gas at a time because you don't have that much lava. But I will use that sometimes as well, just to like
cool.
top off my saturation and stuff like that.
All
Like so,
right.
you know, like or maybe like you're doing it, and your mains just hit oversaturation, like it's on 16 workers, and that's got a gas, and you're like, oh, I've got lava here, so I'll very regularly do it in my main. Select the hatchery, build 3 drones, click on the second gas, and then I can rally it to my natural or something like that, right? Somewhere else, one of the other 2 bases that still need workers on it. So then sometimes it still is like, okay, now my natural's full of saturation, now I can rally both of them to the third. So it still kind of has that kind of rhythm that's similar to what we do in the earlier stages, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good call. Yeah, I'll try to give that a go. Changing subject entirely.
Yeah.
Um, These styles that you've given me, I try to cancel the force and I try to keep the Protoss on the back foot and so on. That works when the Protoss is want to, overwhelm me economically. But what do I do if the Protoss just chills on free base
So you've seen a few
and
stalkers
just
warping in. You're like, okay, I'm
and
making my
not
zerglings.
Stalker. I'm talking like not against John Bond. I'm talking in general on the ladder, like
Yeah.
charge lot Immortal Arc on free base.
Well,
What
we
do I do?
definitely don't want to build Zerglings off 55 drones if we don't see
Yes,
Stalkers
that's
warping
what
in.
I'm thinking. That's like
Yeah.
it's one of my this all the style you've given me assumes the Protoss is gonna try to overwhelm me in the economy and to try to take advantage of that. But a lot of players actually don't do that. And so in those cases, I'm a bit at the loss of what to do.
So the plan you've been doing here is probably what we want to be doing against those sorts of players. But you're saying that they're not taking a fourth at all. They're just sitting on 3 base. Do we have a replay of that sort of stuff? Actually, let's hop out and look at some of the replays.
Yeah, I do actually.
1 sec. I'm gonna turn my aircon on. Give me 1 sec. All right.
So I have 2 where I just straight up lose because they'll lead me off 2.5 base and I die. But
Yeah.
those I think if I just stop droning, not try to go to 56 drone, I should be able to hold in the future. And there's one which is the first one I've sent you, the VP Freebase Colossus, where it's exactly like that, where it's against John Bond again, so obviously,
Yeah.
it's out of my league, but nevertheless, the style is there, and I'm a bit like, what should I do against that?
Yeah, Stalker Colossus timings can be a bit awkward because they're very bad and very good at different points in the game, right? They kind of fall apart sometimes to like Vipers or just big giant surrounds of like roach heavy armies. But if you can't get that big surround, if they don't overcommit to their attack and they do transition and they add disruptors and things, it can get really awkward. So, I mean, we've got. Sorry, did you have? We've got. Which one should we look at?
It's the first reply I sent you. ZVP Freebase Colossus at the very top of our message.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So 3-base Colossus can be kind of tough.
Yeah, I'm saying this is Freebase Colossus, but I've also lost to it where it was, Freebase Charge Immortal Archon Storm. It's I think it's more the playstyle of Freebase rather than the actual compositions that puts me that I don't know
3-base
well
styles.
how to manage.
Okay. 3-base Colossus replay versus John Bomb. So this is going to be one where we really need to recognize what he's doing, and that's going to be a big theme. Because Colossus is like a big delay before it attacks. But then when it hits, it's quite powerful. So the earlier we scout it is so important, right? It's so huge. Let's just benchmark this, because you really do seem to be very good at keeping up with John Bomb and being like either even or just slightly behind, usually just a little behind. I don't think from the replays I've seen you've ever really been like ahead of him. Or
well, you should have seen the first 40 games. That was not like that.
You're definitely never playing with an advantage, which is definitely rough. Okay, so he still does the Blink Stalker pressure, which is great. We do have a nice 4th up though, which is awesome. So we don't have an Overseer Scout, which is rough, because if we see this Forge double robo, like think about how early you can scout this. So when did our lair finish? Our lair finishes, we should always send an Overseer in, right? We should always have an Overseer in position that we're like thinking about sending in.
I need to get into that habit,
yeah. Even if it's just this guy on your side of the map morphs into an Overseer and goes across, like even then you're still scouting at like, I don't know, 6:30, I want to say it gets there by, something like that. And that's probably good enough. It's better if we see it now, right? If we see it now at 6 minutes, that's like God tier. Because we can immediately, if we see this style, it's like, okay, I'm just going to go, for me, I would just go Lurker Viper. I think that's the best counter, because Vipers wreck Colossus, Lurkers wreck Stalkers and Colossus, right? Technically, you can go Ultras. Ultras are very good against this style if you can get to them as well. Or you can go Mass Muter as well, because his stuff doesn't shoot up, and play more of a base trade style. Those are your kind of 3 best options. Lurkers is the most standard of them. What do you like?
I think Lurker Viper is nice. I would like to eventually learn how to use Lurker. And I think I would want to have in my arsenal the ability to, out-tech the Protoss, because I feel like all my tricks are based off me trying to swarm the Protoss with lower tech and him taking up and eventually overwhelming me. And I'd like to have, the option to go the I out-tech you because you've stayed on, Gateway Man too long, or you've done Colossus, or things like that. So I'd like to have something like that.
Awesome. All right, so the Lurker tech it is. Yeah, I think honestly, this is just Scout, and then Infestation Pit and Hydra Den. Make the Hive as quickly as possible. Go for the Lurker Den.
Do I cancel the Spires then?
Yeah, I'd cancel the Spire. Though you'll scout it before you even go for the Spire, I would imagine, most of the time.
I think I put Spire when Lair finishes, so around same time, actually.
Yeah, I think remember what we said, though, it'll be like slightly lower priority than everything else. You might squeeze it in that early. Maybe you'll cancel it, but I think you will end up with it being a little slower if you're building these like earlier Zerglings and stuff to try to cancel 4th bases and things like that. So I think depending on how quick your Overseer gets in, it might be 50-50 or something like that. But yeah, canceling the Spire is a good idea. If you can let him scout the Spire first, then cancel it, that's great. Especially against ladder opponents. I don't think John Bomb gives a fuck about Mutalisks, because you've never really scared him with it, because he's already got too much control. But I think ladder players, when they see Spires, are going to shit their pants a little bit more.
I've had many Protoss just instantly as soon as they see Mutalisk. It's great. Feels great.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. So, I mean, Roach Ravage is not bad against this. We're just a bit behind, right? He just has too much stuff, so cool.
So in general case, like, let's say he wasn't going Colossus and he was still on Freebase. Should I do the same response of like rushing Lurker?
I don't think it would be bad. If you want to just do that as a standard versus any 3 base, that's fine. But anyone who's especially committed to tech on 3 bases as well, right? Oh, this guy's on 3 base going double forge, but just like chilling. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll do it. This guy's he's going robo immortal storm on 3 base. Okay, I'll tech lurkers. I mean, this is what the Europeans have been trying against Christianer and mostly failing with as well.
So what is
So
the optimal
yeah.
response then if I see 3 base? Obviously, it's not to queen walk, right? There's no way that's going to work.
It's not to what, sorry?
To queen walk.
Oh, I mean, the optimal response is probably just to play a macro game always, right? If we were to ask what Cyril would do, the optimal response is to just tech up and add
but what's
upgrades and defend.
the most efficient response for someone with my skill level?
Yeah. Well, if they're not going for a fourth, I mean, I think you might be surprised how many people you could just still. The easiest way to win in general. Okay, let's just answer. What's the easiest way to just win every game in general for your skill level and everyone's skill? It's to queen walk at 6 minutes every single game of ZVP. Every matchup, it's to walk 4 queens and 10 roaches across the map with Massling behind it.
All right.
And you'll
Can you
get
do
GM
the write-up
next
of
week.
that build for the time where I'm
yeah,
uber
this can be.
and I'm like, I just wanna.
yeah. All right. We're gonna write this build order out. Fucking all right. It's Dark's special, spelled special. Queen walk. Okay, so basically what you want to do, make sure you get supply blocked on 36 for 14 seconds. Then
yes.
again,
I already
on
do that. I'm professional at this.
For 43 seconds. Decide at the last second to go Roach Warren and 2 more gases off, let's say 38 drones, 40 drones. So no, we go 40 drones, but 33 by the time we push, because oracles will kill 7.
Yes.
Make 10 roaches. Walk our 4 queens across. Remember, was it you I was talking about recently about trying to have queens on the edge of creep a little bit and like pushing your creep aggressively so that like they don't know if there's a queen walk coming?
Yeah, you did mention that, yeah.
Cool. I shouted at Estrella about this. He got me to coach his off race, and I was like, fucking move your queens forward. Because they were scouting every single thing he was doing. And I was like, dude, get your queens on the edge of creep. Like, you can't let them see everything you're doing. And I think he got a bit better at the ZVP because that was a few weeks ago. Walk our 4 queens across the map.
So 40 drones is like 2 gas, 10 roach, all of them Ravager, infinite links, and
yeah. And you'll float 2,000 minerals behind it because you have like no queens at home, or even if you do, you forget to inject.
Yes.
And then when you do decide to jump home, you'll build like a 4th, 5th base, hold the drone key down, rebuild your queens, etc. Yeah.
Okay. And I just literally move the queen. It's like, oh, I'm going to make a creep road. I don't even have lair, right?
No, we don't. We don't even bother with injects at all. We're just like, look, 4 queens can kind of beat 3 oracles. So unless they're the weirdo who builds 4 or 5 oracles or whatever, like it should be fine. Even if the oracles beat the queens, it should be like a close enough fight that like the oracle energy is mostly gone. You've killed 1 or 2 of the oracles. Okay, there's 1 oracle left overhead with 50 energy that'll kill a few units, but it's not going to like change the game as drastically kind of thing. And more often than not, you just have enough to overwhelm the oracles. And that's all you need, right? It's just enough so the oracles can't just sit there killing all your ravages, basically. And then you'll be fine. Okay. Yeah. So that's obviously, like, I know that's a joke, the way I wrote that build order, but I almost am not kidding. Like, it really is just get to, like, 35, 40 drones, 2 to 3 gases. You can do it off just 2 gas if you take the 2nd gas earlier. But yeah, I think generally, let's just say, like, 4, what do you think? 4 minutes Roach Horn before 40, 520, 6?
Usually at 3:30 I can put it down because I have 2 base, 2 mineral lines saturated, and I start floating a bit. It's usually my timing.
Yeah, we want to try to build a few drones to the 3rd to try and fake that we're macroing, but even if we don't, it doesn't really matter. We could just literally just go 2 base. So let's say 345. Okay. So about 345. Go for the Roach Horn and 2nd gas. Roughly about there. That should be more than enough time to start pumping roaches and stuff. Because the roaches, remember, the queens take a while to walk across. So yeah, about 5 minutes, we probably want to start moving with our queens. Maybe 5:15, something like that. Walk off our queens across the map, non-stopping rally. Try to morph as many ravages as possible. Float 2k minerals whilst forgetting to rebuild queens and inject. And obviously, if you can run some lings in and distract or cancel a shield battery kind of thing on the 3rd, that's always nice. That's usually a big thing you'll see all the pros do to set up for that push.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of the best way to just kind of have a one size
All
fits
right.
all.
If I get triggered not reaching master after
Yeah.
a few weeks, and I just want to get there, I'll do that.
Heck yeah. So
Like I
with
tried macroing, no.
um
Okay.
in terms of the lurker transition, don't fully drone your fourth is really important. Try to get the gases on your fourth if you can, but
So
try to
it's
only
8
build.
gas. I always try to go of 10 gas for the record transition. I kind of feel like it's important, but 8 gas is enough?
Yeah, no, against a 3 base player, you definitely cannot do
Against
that.
free base. Against free
Yeah.
base, yes, of course.
If
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
a longer game, yeah, you can go 10 gas. The game's kind of going on. Because at that point, you're like, oh, I can overbuild drones because then I can put spines everywhere as well if I overbuild drones. But
Okay.
against a 3 base player, we're not really hitting that economy where we can afford static D. It's better to just have more army. Yeah.
Do I make the Hydra upgrades against free base, or do I need to kind of rush it? Because I'm always a bit scared.
Yeah, I'd skip the Hydra. If you can afford grooved spines, just go for that because that's better defensively. And you're worried about
Yeah.
defending first and foremost.
Yeah,
Over,
I would
yeah.
want to rush Vipers, to be honest, just in case,
I would completely skip.
Disruptors, Colossus.
Optimal is completely skip Hydra upgrades until after you've got 2 Vipers, Seismic Spines, and some Lurkers morphing.
Gotcha. Seismic Spine is a big one, yeah, okay.
Yeah. So definitely, but there are times where like I don't know, you're ahead on gas because the early game's being weird and you can afford to squeeze it in. But yeah, generally it's like sometime after your first Lurker morph, your first Viper or 2, and your first Lurker upgrades. A lot of people only build a single Viper. Depending on your level, the success you find, your comfort level, it's up to you. I like always building 2 Vipers. I'm always happy to slow down my Lurkers for that a little bit, unless it's life or death, right? If there's a push coming, obviously Lurkers are first, Lurker upgrades first,
Yeah.
but I'm happy to be like, I'm only going to make 4 Lurkers for now, delay 4 Lurkers, because that's 4 less Lurkers is 2 Vipers, right? That's a lot of less Lurkers. But I think the Vipers will give me value. I see pros just not build the Vipers at all, because like the pros are so good at pulling their Colossus back, focusing Vipers with Stalkers, adding feedback, all these things, they just have a lower reward generally for building the Viper. Whereas for me, I find I have a really high reward in most of my games. So it's kind of up to you how comfortable you are with it, how much you want to prioritize that. You can absolutely do it with no Vipers, but especially against like a Colossus style, even a Mortal Archon, even if they've got High Templar, I always feel like there's always something sticking out. And just being able to just abduct a few Archons, abduct a few Immortals,
Yeah.
even if you're on the defense,
I agree, yeah.
like they rotate from path to path and they're being really annoying. Just being able to grab an Immortal or Archon kind of punishes them for being so aggressive. So it's really good.
Okay. All right. Well, I also wanted to get a little intel on how to play with Hydra Lurker, but we're already an hour 15 in, so I'm not sure if I don't want to disrupt the stream too much, but I see issue I find myself in is like when I get lurkers, I don't know how to attack with them because it's hard.
Let's just write a couple real basic notes for you here, okay?
All right.
How
cool.
to
Cheers.
win with lurkers. So, lurkers are a siege tank push.
Yes.
So they're really good when they're set up, and they're really hard to get across the map in a good position without getting killed as you're unburrowed moving forward.
Yep.
So, my favorite things are send 2 lurkers, 1 around each side, to go burrow behind mineral lines. Try to queue them along the very edges of bases. People normally build cannons in front of their base. Like for instance on this map, his third gateway wall-off's really annoying. But if he's on these 4 bases, let's ignore the top base, we'd have 1 lurker come down around the bottom, and I'd queue it to move here, and then burrow like here or something like that, right? And if there's cannons at the front of the base, they're not even detecting it. Same on the top side, comes along the very edge. So even if there's some cannons here, they'll shoot it, but it'll get past, burrow behind the mineral line. The little details like that are actually quite important because otherwise they often just run into cannons and die. Pro players and most players never actually block the edges with their cannons and gateways on their 4th and 5th bases and stuff, so that's really good. So Lurker Harass is huge. Its whole job is to just drag their attention. We don't care if it's efficient or not. It's just, hey, deal with this. We're both mining enough money, get out of here. Have fun with that. The other option, which I don't find myself using much lately, but I used to use, and I think it may be like a meta thing or something like that, is the counterattack / distraction squad. So basically, because they're often doing zealot counterattacks and shit that are keeping me at home, I have to kind of split off. I split off, let's say 14 roaches plus hydras to deal with a zealot run by. and then immediately counterattack.
With the same squad.
Yeah. So its job is
Yeah.
to pull them out of position. And the idea is it's enough army that they can't just do a warp in to deal with it, right? That's why 14 roaches and hydras is almost 30 supply of army. You can't warp in 8 zealots to deal with that. They'll get wrecked, right? You can kind of just, and that's going to force their army to move out of position, which is like super duper effective. And then that allows your lurker push. You know, this allows your lurkers to shove the other side, right? That can be really effective.
Okay. Yeah.
So either sometimes the 2 lurkers allows you to do that, right? Or you just abducting an immortal and an archon, they pull home defensively, and that's really big. Changeling spam is huge, right? So make sure some overseers are following your lurkers, not on control group, right? So that they don't run in and die. That's always nice to have like 1 or 2 overseers just right-clicked on a random lurker. And every now and then just, you know, drop changelings off them. Control click the overseer, drop changelings, click it back on the lurkers, grab the changelings, spread them out. Basically try to attack where their army isn't. So you can get sieged up, right? That's a big one.
Gotcha. Yeah. That's true. That's all right. Cool.
So that's kind of the main tenets there. Is it's just different ways of kind of catching them out of position. If your opponents are really good at keeping you on the defense, it's tough. So when turtled up and under heavy pressure, you just want to make sure you are ready to move out. Because how often do you move out and then a prism comes in? Spores on the edges to zone prisms. If there's a ledge where you can, you know, an edge where you can completely stop the prisms from getting into your base from that side, build 3 spores on that edge, right? It's just worth it, right?
Gotcha, yeah, definitely.
Spines in each base behind the mineral line, you know, in the little corners.
Yep.
But to do that, you also need more drones, right? So sometimes when you're like, I want to do a lurker timing, but they're just in your face, zealot, prism drop, armies rotating around. Sometimes you just have to accept the position you're in, and you go, look, if I can sneak a few lurkers out to harass, that's great, but I'm going to build an extra 15 drones here on 4 base or 5 base, whatever I'm turtled on, and I'm going to build a few more spines, get some spores on the edges, so that when I do finally get a chance to move out, I'm not instantly getting hit by, 3 zealots in my third, kill 20 drones, a prism in my main, kills my lurker Dan, and we go, and our whole army has to pull home and everything falls apart. So it's kind of like being flexible. Whereas there's other games where they're more defensive and it's like, man, we just morphed our first 10 lurkers. We just run across and siege on their 4th. And it's like, cool, this feels way cleaner. This feels way easier, right? And a lot of that comes down to the lurker timing, how early you get the lurkers compared to where your opponent is at in the game. And that is a massive difference, like game-changing difference. So just remember, if it feels really hard with your lurkers, the first and foremost thing is like, how did we get to this situation in the game? What can we do to get there a bit faster? Because there's always a situation where things are different. What just happened? Oh my god. Oh my god.
All good.
Can you still hear me, man?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, I just made like all of my apps disappear off my monitor somehow.
Oh.
Whoa, I just minimized everything on my second monitor. I don't know. I didn't even know that was a thing I could do. That's so weird. I like just hid my second monitor. I think I duplicated my first monitor on my second monitor. It just made me freak out. I don't know how I did that, but it's back now. It's fine. Awesome. Any last questions before we finish up, man?
No, I think many pointers to get at it. Hopefully it brings me success on the ladder. Otherwise, I'll come back to you.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is the thing is like we're really seeing like how hard of a step this is, right? This is StarCraft at its core. You learn good builds, mechanics, and then you're hitting this break point, and you're hitting it even harder than most players do because you're putting yourself in the deep end, which will make you improve faster. It's a bit more painful, playing against a guy as good as John Bomb repeatedly. But pain gives rewards as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I learned super fast.
You're giving yourself the stick rather than the carrot. I prefer a bit of both, bit of the stick, bit of the carrot, but instead you're just hitting yourself with the stick. You're just one of those monks whipping themselves on the back from the Middle Ages. I must pay penance. I had foul thoughts or whatever.
Yes, that is a correct description.
So if we want to sum things up, it's getting used to this default build those Zerglings, look for the cancel on the 4th, and an earlier 4th and 5th base.
Try to be more aggressive earlier,
That's a default. The other thing that goes hand in hand with it is that Overseer Scout every single game.
Yeah.
The moment the layer's done. And if it dies or whatever, just morph another one and queue it in straight away. It'll take a while to get across the map, but just to see what they're doing. And I want you, after every game, before you think about, man, I felt helpless, or this worked, or this didn't work, or how well did I do? Because I think you're pretty good at improving your builds. We can always do better. We can always do better. I don't want you to get lazy on improving your builds and checking your macro and stuff. I want you to look at their build, though. Understand what their build was. That has to be the first thing. Because otherwise it's going to be eternally frustrating for you being like, why did this work one game and not the other game? And it's like, well, this guy went double forge at 5 minutes versus this guy who's on 5 base with no forges. You know, that's a totally different game flow. And if we're finishing games and we don't realize that, and we're like, why was the results so different? Like it's, I just want you to be really having a mind to what is Protoss doing. And this is going to be a brain expanding part of your game. Maybe off race a little bit if you want to try doing some like Blink Oracle pressures. Yeah, that could help you out. Awesome, man.
All right. Cool.
Sick. All right, man. I will catch you next time. Great preparation as always. Sorry we didn't get to cover everything. And hopefully we get to go over it next time.
A lot of it I can manage.
Awesome. All right, man. No worries. I'll catch you later. Have a good night.
Yeah, see you around.
See you later, man. Bye.
Bye.
Okie dokie. All right, guys. That was a session, that was. There was just so much to cover because he's been working so hard and he's been doing so much practice. So it's kind of tough. It's kind of tough to cover everything because there's just so many details. There's so many things to talk about. Holy crudsicles. But we got there in the end, to most of it, I think. But we really got to see that, like, making that jump from Diamond 1 all the way to GM play, or very close to GM in John Bomb, it's such a... Suddenly there's, like, so much, like, oh, God, we need to counter this, we need to counter that. This build's so different to that build, and it's also just fascinating, like, looking at how optimized John Bomb's build was, that 4th base at 6 minutes with the Stalker and the Oracle on the front. It's such a... Those builds are so optimized where if they keep you pinned back with the Stalkers and the Oracles, it feels so fucking OP, man. Because you're just like, go! You're just trading with me? Okay, I guess I gotta sit here on 60 drones making units for a while. And you're like, okay, I'm fucking building units. And you're like, oh, he has fucking 4th and 5th base now and 10 gates and double forge or like whatever. You're like, what the fuck did this happen? Fuck off, man. But yeah, I've noticed one of the biggest things in Pro PvZ is like canceling the 4th. Like if you just let them go over and take that 4th, which happens so much, it's drastically different results. Like it's crazy how big, and it's same in my own games when I'm playing Protoss, where like there are these games where the Zerg kind of just lets me do what I want to do. And I'm like, man, PvZ is such a chill matchup. And then there's the Zergs where it's like Queen Walk one game, Nidus the next game, Lurker Rush the next game. And I'm like, oh, you're actually impossible to beat. You're so fucking... This is unfair. Like, I can't fucking tell the difference between these builds. Like, he's droning the 3rd. Awesome. It's the Lurker build this time. And then the fucking Queen Walk comes. And I'm like, I'm gonna fucking kill myself. You know, like, so... It's just like... it's very difficult to figure out what the fucking... Zerg is doing when they're good at both obscuring what they're doing and they have different options on the table. And now obviously that's within like a best of series when you know the opponent, but even just generally on the ladder, that stuff kind of to some extent holds true.